Let's talk to Jacob in Tennessee. You are on the line with Jimmy and Jovan. Jacob in Tennessee, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Jimmy. Thank you for asking. You doing all right, bud?
Just fine.
Cool.
Are you about to drive? Because we do not take callers who are driving, but I want this call, so don't
I'm
drive.
parked. I parked just for you, buddy.
Excellent. Well, we can stop the beeping too. That'd be excellent as well. All right. Well, what is the position you want to call in and discuss? I see what the screener has, but I'll let you introduce it yourself.
So I would say that the Democrats have a morally inferior position on trans youth, well, morally and scientifically.
Great. What and is we can delve into. Sure. No. I know exactly how to investigate it. It's an interesting statement, and the easiest way is just to ask a few clarifying questions here. So, first of all, what is the scientific position on trans youth? Not the Democrats. What is the scientific consensus? What's that?
Specifically talking the Dutch protocol.
No. I asked for the scientific consensus, not specifically the Dutch protocol, which was set by politicians, not doctors.
That's the problem. So that's the problem. Okay, there's not really a consensus.
Well, no, there is a consensus. Consensus doesn't mean unanimity. It means the overwhelming majority. Like it is the overwhelming popular position. So when you're saying consensus, or when you're saying scientifically superior position, you are that the Dems are inferior. You are not pointing to a lack of consensus, I assume, as being why.
There's a lack of consensus. I don't believe that your statement is correct. I don't believe that there is a majority that have that opinion. There's a lot of countries that come out within the past 3 years. You know this. Sweden, amongst like 3 or 4 other countries in Europe, have come out.
Why are you listing political bodies instead of scientific bodies? Why are you listing political bodies, not scientific bodies?
Well, because these governments have the best healthcare in the world because they're state run and they're really well state run, right? So typically, Sweden would be considered
the number one favorite food, and you said cats, but you meant pets. I didn't ask about their healthcare. I asked why instead of quoting scientific bodies, are you quoting government bodies? Whether a government recognizes, that'd be like being like, well, queer people shouldn't be able to get married because in most countries they can't get married. I don't care what the countries say. I care about the actual, what are the objective facts? Right now, scientifically, we can only point to consensus. You are saying that Democrats have an inferior scientific position. So I am saying you must have a consensus that clearly points to it as inferior and asking for you what consensus position you have. And so far, you have pointed to 3 small countries for good health care. So you're not nailing it so far. Do you want to give it another shot? We can move on to the next question.
For a moment.
Excellent. This will be you answering what consensus position they have that is opposed, that undermines the Democratic position. Go on.
So when I refer to Sweden and other countries, they have state-run healthcare systems. So what I mean when I say Sweden,
so we're still going with political bodies.
I'm not finished, Jimmy.
You legitimately can't finish if you're going to once again start with according to a political body, not a science body. No, I'm going to interrupt every time.
Okay. So I'll give you the exact name, but if you're not aware, Jimmy, Sweden's healthcare system is run by its government.
Great. And is Sweden a scientific body or a government body?
Well, that would be a combination in this case.
No, it wouldn't. It would be a government body.
Okay, well, scientific body it is. We'll just call it scientific body then.
But, okay, so then we'll just be wrong because it isn't.
Okay, so the National Institute of Medical Science in Sweden isn't scientific.
Great. That specific institute is, however, does not represent broad consensus. You acknowledge that you're having to go to a specific, excuse me, what?
In Sweden it does.
Well, are we in Sweden?
Well, no, but I mean, Sweden's kind of the gold standard for the world, is it not?
Real quick, I don't know why we're talking. Sweden hasn't banned gender affirming care, so I don't even know why we're talking about that. It's still available in Sweden.
They have. It's very easily Googleable. You can easily find the sources.
No, they haven't.
Have, except for cases in research.
Nope. First of all, almost every case is you. First and foremost, almost every case of somebody being put on gender affirming care is used for research. Literally from like everybody, they pool their data together, especially in countries like Sweden. Secondly, they have not placed a ban on it. They set guidelines, but the doctors in Sweden, they don't have to follow those guidelines. They have discretion. So like you're saying something that is factually untrue. Yeah,
no,
sure.
I talked to the administrator of their health department. I got emails with him back and forth talking to him. Okay, I can send you the email. I got some clarifying positions on this.
You go ahead and send those emails, Jacob. The funniest thing is, first of all, I've already looked it up. You're definitely not correct. They do still have the ability to. Yes, they've added terms like exceptional cases. They have not said strictly only for research. But even if you were right, you're trying to present an unnuanced position. Even if you were right, at the end of the day, I would still sit here and go, Sweden is wrong. They are not appealing to the broad consensus. And we haven't even gotten to the next parts of the questions, which are what is the scientific position and what consensus position shows that the Dems' position is wrong. And then the next thing would have easily been, what is the Democrats' position on trans youth healthcare?
The Dutch protocol.
What is the Democrats? You said the Dems' position is morally and scientifically inferior. What position do the Democrats?
You're gonna have to let me speak for a minute, Jimmy. It's gonna take me a second to outline this.
I certainly don't have to. Are you going to answer my question or are you going to answer something else? Jacob, are you going to answer my question or something else?
I'm trying to answer your question, Jimmy, but it's going to take me just a minute.
What question are you about to answer? What question are you about to answer? Repeat it to me.
Okay, so let me give you the question that you just asked me, Jimmy. You want to repeat it for the audience?
No, I want you to repeat it to prove you heard it because you said you're about to answer it.
That the position that the Democrats have a morally inferior position.
Nope. And I don't even know. You just repeated some of your own statement. I asked you, what is the present day, as a part of the Democrats' platform, position on minor care for trans youth?
I told you once the Dutch protocol, and I'll elaborate if you give me a second.
You believe the American Democrats' protocol, that their position is the Dutch protocol?
Do you know what the Dutch protocol is, Jimmy?
I know it's not the American Democrats' position because they would not have called somebody else's protocol their position.
So just to clear some things up, the Dutch protocol is just essentially what the Dutch protocol is what we use because it's what the WPATH recommends. But the Dutch protocol, there's nothing wrong with the Dutch protocol. The only people that think there's something wrong with the Dutch protocol are people that don't know anything about gender affirming care to begin with.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about that. We'll get to one of the moral topics, and this is exactly if you let me hit on it. So
we don't need to get to the moral topics. We're talking about the scientific topic, right? So you need to point to me the incorrect.
Regardless,
morally.
You
also
said
scientific
and moral. And the Democratic position, when you're saying you just want to, in summary, say the Dutch protocol because it matches what you think, still doesn't work because you have Democrats coming out here not supporting it. Kamala Harris wasn't promising health care for trans youth. And if anything, Gavin Newsom's going back on all of it, and that's probably the next presidential candidate. So I don't even think I don't think you can identify what a scientific position is and what the consensus is. I don't think you can identify correctly what the Dems are. Why you're calling in to talk to two non-Democrats about what the Dems have when we actually have positions as leftists you would oppose, I'm not positive on. And then as far as moral position goes, you're only going to be able to make a subjective case anyway. And so inferior will have to be on the basis of it will do more harm to the people, thereby appealing to humanism. But I doubt you can pull that off either.
Well, that's what Sweden's whole concern was, is that they believe there's more harm being done than good. And like I said,
Jacob,
typically
you will admit that it's
not only for healthcare, but also for trans people for the last 60 years.
Wait, can we just hold on. Can we just please boil down where we're going in this argument? If your argument is that call us bad, you are never going to be able to defend this. You can try, it's not going to work. If your argument is, I think morally gender affirming care is bad, you're even further, like Jimmy said, never going to be able to defend this. So which position do you want to take?
Give me a chance.
We're asking which position you're going to take, Jacob. Which position, which line of argument do you want to go down? There are two different
Let's keep going down the scientific one. Let's keep going down the scientific one, and I want to outline with you how the science leads to immorality. How about that?
Okay, Jacob, before you do, I want to ask you a question.
Science can't lead to immorality.
If Sweden changes to the Dutch protocol in the next 10 years, will you have changed your position, or will you still be against trans kids getting access to gender-affirming care?
Well, that depends on if you let the science progress or not.
If they change in the next 10 years, will it change your position?
I have to look at everybody's position, like what every scientific body is saying. I have to do like a summary.
That's why I think we need to just boil down what he has wrong with the Dutch protocol, because it's clear that the only thing he cares about is that he disagrees with the Dutch protocol. So anybody that follows WPATH, essentially, he's going to claim is in the wrong. So what is it about the Dutch protocol that you think goes against science?
And don't bring up Sweden at all.
Perfect
because
question,
hang on. I'm going to let you. But you don't get to bring up Sweden, since you've already acknowledged that it being the Swedish authority does not make it superior or inferior, because you won't commit that if they change using their standards, which right now you want to hide behind, if they change using their standards, you won't change yours, right? You won't commit to changing, so you don't get to hide behind that it was Sweden at all.
You're completely misconstruing what I'm saying. I said I would take a general consensus and consider their position like I have now. So there's no.
So it being Sweden. So you earlier saying it's the gold standard and that you have to bring it up doesn't actually matter. That is not the real reason you accept their. That's not the real reason you accept their guidances. Otherwise, that same gold standard you'd be good with later if they change it.
Jimmy, it's for sure part of the reason. Do you know the history of Sweden and the history of the trans community? They were the first people to offer like an acceptance in society. They're also the first people to offer medical support in society.
This sounds like great support for why if they change within 10 years, you'll have to change too. So you'll commit to that?
No, I said I'd take a general consensus.
Now go ahead and make your point and making sure that everybody watching knows that if he says Sweden, it's not about Sweden. It's about that right now he thinks Sweden lines up with what he already believes, and their gold standard will no longer be the gold standard to him if they divert from his beliefs. Now proceed with your defense of why why the Democrats' platform is scientifically inferior to what, the Republicans?
Yes, sure. You want to paint another light? I won't knock it. But so to give Jovan his question, like what's the problem here? So I'll give you a contradiction in the science. Have you ever, like, if you look at psychology and you look at neurology, in psychology there's something called Erikson's foundational model. And it basically talks about how the brain develops and at what ages you expect what things to occur. And this is the most widely accepted model in psychology. And during 12 to 18, I'm sure you've heard of the word impressionable, Jimmy. And I imagine you would probably agree that young people are the most impressionable people typically. And it states specifically in Erikson's foundational in this theory that basically 12 to 18 is the identity versus confusion stage. Okay? And then, and there's a lot of other ones, neuroscience as well. Neuroscience claims that identity, your prefrontal cortex, where your identity and all of your higher function thoughts are coming from, isn't fully developed until 25. And all right,
so Jacob, we've now made 2 points and you're wrong on both of them. So do you want to do prefrontal cortex or the foundational impressionable thing, Jovan?
Well, I don't think either of them matters. It's not saying anything about the Dutch protocol. It's got nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with what is given in the Dutch protocol, why the Dutch protocol is set up the way it is. You're just making an inference that, hey, because I see that they tell me between this age and this age, kids are impressionable. That means we shouldn't let kids make decisions. We can take this as far as we want to take it. Kids shouldn't be allowed to decide fucking anything. Why do we let kids who are 18, who are just turning 18, even before 18, decide where to go to college when that's going to dictate the entirety of their future? If they're just impressionable, why do we let
them be Christian?
Why do we let them join the military? Why do we let them into like?
The actual identity stuff,
JRTC or whatever?
a lot of them thinking you can commit to it by 8 years old. By the way, your prefrontal cortex knowledge, I recognize what you're doing, Jacob. You've gone and you've researched a few specific terms. If we ask you about other foundational terms surrounding the exact same thing, it will immediately reveal your ignorance, that you aren't broadly educated on it. However, you've gone and found the terms that specifically support the thing you already want. And you've already been wrong, because when you're talking about the impressionable identity stuff, it does not have as much to do with things like sex, gender, orientation, because those things are not the things that you can just hardwire out of somebody. If anything, it is the other things that you can fuck with, where you can instill bigotry and help people deny that they are queer, as happened with me growing up Mormon. And those things tend to still be present, and you can recognize them in the past, even post-bigotry. And then they do tend to emerge still in adulthood and be recognized. Then when it comes to your prefrontal cortex 25 thing, if no one ever says this dumb thing ever again for whatever they're defending, even on the sides that I agree on, of the general topic, I would be so happy, because it is a bullshit number. The prefrontal cortex, first of all, does not stop developing at 25. In fact, we just haven't really researched prefrontal cortex development past 25. It turns out that actually it may never stop developing. Now, how much development it does certainly goes down with age. But if that was what we were actually talking about, we would probably cut that off at an even earlier age, because the massive amount of your prefrontal cortex development is done by the time you're like 20. Everything else from there on is refinement processes, but also changes person to person. This 25 number has far more to do with where the research ends and where we need more research to hone in on where things actually are. But Jacob, I sit here and I'm aware that you know that these things are, if you actually were consistent in your beliefs, you would also be opposed to religious indoctrination, because that's one of the biggest identity things. So you would make it illegal to give children access to religions until they are 25?
Wait. Before we get there, we're even going off the rails, because he's mischaracterizing Erikson's like development. Like, specifically, to quote Erikson himself, this, like, between 12 and 18, the sense of identity provides the ability to experience oneself as something that is continuity and sameness, and to act accordingly. He writes very specifically, especially in childhood and society, Jesus Christ, in childhood and society, that what happens between 12 and 18 is that's when you are creating this identity. So to say trans kids shouldn't get to be their identity because they're creating their identity, that goes against your
it debunks what I said, but exactly.
Hold on. Are you do you create gay, or are you gay?
You're identifying it. You're experiencing it. He's saying that because you're developing it in that term, that the emergence happens then, he thinks you might be able, it would seem, to preempt it and get something else to emerge.
So essentially the emergence happens then, and it solidifies around 18. So you wouldn't know until 18.
It doesn't solidify. What are you talking about? Wait, when did you, are you straight or are you gay?
Jovan, are you top or bottom?
Probably a bottom. Are you straight or are you gay?
What about you, Jimmy?
No.
I don't understand why you're avoiding the question.
Your question. You go ahead and answer. This is your two's conversation.
If Jimmy answers, I'll answer it. Are you top or bottom, Jimmy?
Jacob, it doesn't matter. No. In that case, Jacob, you do not get a single additional word on this program because he already, in good faith, even though you were trying to distract, engaged your dumbass question. So you either answer his, or we will just move on, because we're not going to fall for your bullshit where you're trying to take control of it by diverting from the actual topic. So you can either answer or you can fuck right off.
Personally, at the moment, no, I'm not gay.
Okay. You're straight. At the moment is a little sus, but that's fine. When did you start when did you start finding girls attractive?
Oh God. I was making out with my babysitter when I was in like second grade, dude.
7.
Okay.
I'd be 7 years old. You were sexually assaulted, by the way.
A serious conversation.
And probably go to therapy for that, because you were sexually assaulted. A 7-year-old can't consent even to it.
So, just confirming, when you claimed that sexuality emerges between 12 and 18, that was a lie. as you yourself can attest. Yes, you did.
Not sexuality. Gender is not sexuality. Those two completely different things.
Am I losing my fucking mind right now?
Jimmy
mentioned sexuality and was specifically talking about that. And then you said, well, this all doesn't emerge. And if we want to talk about emergence of gender identity emerges at 7. So you would be wrong again.
Not according to Erikson model of development or
Erikson doesn't talk about gender identity. Erikson never even brings it up. You are mischaracterizing the actual research here. He doesn't talk about gender identity. We can map what he talked about onto other things, but in our current understanding of human psychological development, gender and gender identity it solidifies. Actually, it starts developing around 3 or 4, but it hardcore solidifies around 7. You don't know the current emergent science on this because you are just an armchair psychologist.
No, I spoke to a researcher or a therapist.
Holy shit! Good for you.
A whole researcher? A whole therapist?
Huh?
One whole?
Well, he deals with trans people. He speaks to trans people, and he's on Talk Heathen.
And for them,
been there for a while. He's got
what's his name? What's his name?
I think it might be Jamie.
You don't know? He has credentials, but you don't know his name.
Are you saying Jamie from Talk Heathen and you just upgraded him to a therapist?
Guy. He's a therapist.
Jamie from Talk Heathen is not a therapist or a science researcher.
He said he told me his credentials are he's a therapist that works with basically a lot of different people.
Then you are mistaking who you are talking about.
Okay, well, I spoke with a gentleman. And I was told that from
Miss Jamie got a degree in the last 2 years.
That solidification of gender never actually happens. That it's always fluid. That's what I was told by him.
So just to confirm this. You talk to somebody who has amazing credentials. You don't know what that person's name is. You don't remember where they come from or how you talk to them, but they have these amazing credentials. You made the claim that gender is always fluid, which is not in any way, shape, or form our understanding on gender from a psychological level. There are people who are gender fluid, but they are fluid. Not everybody is fluid in gender.
I go with gender's probably always capable of fluidity. My relationship with my own masculinity is probably true. I've probably solidified and become manlier, if anything, in the last few years. So there's a fluidity too, but the sense of gender, what gender you belong to, or whether you are in totality gender fluid, that does solidify. And in fact, it begins to emerge around ages 2 or 3 and begins to solidify much earlier than what you're describing at 18 years old. In fact, 5 to 7 years old is basically as rigid from 5 to 7 as it becomes.
Let's just start this from a really simple level. The Dutch protocol begins with saying that around Tanner stage 2, a child who is gender dysphoric can be given puberty blockers if they need it. Can you provide us, Jacob, some material harm based on some actual research, material harm for doing this? What is the harm of giving children pubertal suppressants?
Oh, absolutely. That's very easy to outline. You just have to give me a second to explain it. Okay, so we're talking about Tanner stage 2. That's prepubescent. So if you start something off on
Tanner stage 2 is not prepubescent. It is pubescent. Jacob, you're already wrong. Tanner stage 2, puberty is the Tanner. When you're going through puberty, you're going through the Tanner stages.
Bro, I don't know. Because as a guy, I didn't develop till way later than 10, bro.
I don't care when you developed. The Tanner stages are an age range.
Only one is prepubescent. 2 literally means puberty's begun.
So puberty suppressants they're not made to suppress puberty? They're made to pause it after it starts?
Correct.
Oh my God, Jimmy.
Correct.
Jimmy,
you do not
Jimmy,
give it to a prepubescent individual.
Okay, so let's say 10 years old. So we'll go with the beginning range. 10 years old, we're talking about
pause if they haven't started it yet. Wait, I'm sorry, Jacob, I just need you to understand this. Jacob, I just need you to understand this. What are you pausing if they have not started puberty yet.
You're suppressing it from happening.
I think it's.
So the whole idea is to not let them develop secondary sex characteristics from puberty. You know that, right? So like you wouldn't want a guy you wouldn't want a male to female to go through puberty enough to where their voice would change. Their voice starts changing. They start.
What ages are the second stage of the Tanner stages? What age ranges are those?
Well, you just told me at the beginning. Let's say 10. What's the second? Well, and we're going to focus on female to male. Okay.
Is okay. What is the harm of puberty blockers? Just lay out the harm, please, with some relevant piece of data.
So we're talking about somebody, like you said, Tanner stage 2. They basically start having a little bit of development, right? A little bit of development, and they go and they get it paused or suppressive. I'll give you a little bit of development, but we're talking about a little development. All right. So now,
waiting on the harm.
We're gonna let them go through, and we're gonna transition to cross-sex hormones. So we're talking about female to male. Okay.
Hormones. I'm still waiting on the harm of puberty blockers.
You said you were going to easily explain to us the harm. No. You have jumped from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones. You said you were easily going to tell us the harm. We're literally sitting here and we're like trying to not slap ourselves in the face. We're face palming so hard because we have to keep clarifying. Jacob, and I'm sorry, I'm worried. Like sometimes we get on shows with this where we know the person's real name. We keep accidentally almost slipping. I'm sorry. I keep almost calling you Mr. Dunning, and I apologize about that, Jacob. Jacob, you have to actually show. What's that?
It was
Dunning wrong. Sorry, Mr. Kruger. Okay, Jacob, what is the actual problem with? What is the actual damage and harm done by puberty blockers? That was what you were going to declare, and yet you popped off to cross-sex hormones.
Yes, so continuing along with my example, so we've got somebody at Tanner stage 2, they went on puberty blockers, they transitioned to cross-sex hormones, and now they're at the ripe old age of 18, 19, 20, and they're wanting to get in a relationship, and they want to have a sex change, and they're not able to because they're woefully undeveloped sexually.
This is
your claim.
This is untrue.
Right. Yeah. So that's not what happens. But it's your claim that if you give a child puberty blockers, they have less access to trans affirming care in their adulthood. So you are pro-trans, which means you aren't for the Republican position, and you're pro-transition, and you want trans people to have the maximum amount of transition options, and giving them puberty blockers prevents them from having those transition options. That, in summary, is your position here, right?
I don't know if I would, not all of it, Jimmy. You're saying way too much.
Right, what part is wrong?
In terms of leaving the options open, yes. In terms of leaving the options open, yes.
So your initial thing was, so before we break down how you are wrong about the puberty blockers interaction and everything, your position is not actually the Republican position. When you said that the Democrat position and the Republican position currently is the Project 2025 position, because that's what Donald Trump is adopting and is in process right now. They wish to stop all trans affirming care for adults and children. So whose is inferior between the Dutch protocol and the Republican position of no trans healthcare? Whose is the inferior between there?
I wouldn't go with what you said. I would go with like a general, like moderate conservative, not a MAGA conservative. So
so the actual Republicans in power, the actual stuff that is going to affect trans people, and whether or not you should vote Republican or Democrat, you actually shouldn't go with what their position is and will affect you if they win. You should go with the position that you, an obscure person, is claiming is some moderate example, when moderates aren't pro-trans either.
I just want to give a fact check, if I could, really quickly. Really important, because I think when we're talking about things like these and we hear people like Jacob who say information that's untrue, we should give the real truth. When it comes to surgery post puberty blockers, post cross-sex hormones. What happens is if you are trans, if you are specifically male to female, you get a vaginoplasty. And if you are female to male, you get a phalloplasty. A vaginoplasty can be affected because you'll have less tissue, specifically around the scrotum area, to then use for the vaginoplasty. But then doctors just take tissue from your bowels or another part of your body. A phalloplasty usually isn't affected at all because the tissue of phalloplasty does not come from the scrotal area. So it has no effect on it. So your claim here that if you do this, it's gonna result in harder, or it's gonna result in the fact that they can't have the surgeries later in life, is a factually untrue claim. So this means when I asked you to tell me the harm of puberty blockers, all you've given us is an incorrect thing. So my question will go again, and we can just circle back to it if we have the time. What is the harm in giving kids pubertal suppressants?
Jovan, I don't know how you're so woefully misinformed, but if you're probably familiar with Jazz Jennings, they had remarkable.
Holy shit, bro!
They had remarkable
about Jazz Jennings right now. You go fuck about Jazz Jennings right now. I'm telling you the actual research behind vaginoplasties and phalloplasties and how they are done if there is not enough scrotal tissue. So your claim.
Let's tell everybody what happened with Jazz Jennings.
What does the broad? Bro. You gotta love a person who goes, "Hey, what does this broad issue have to do with one individual?"
Because they're specifically male to female, and they were sexually undeveloped, and they had tons and tons and tons of complications.
Craig, get Jazz on the phone. Let's call him. Let's find out. Jazz and Jazz's doctor. If you get them on the phone, we'll find out. Let's go ahead and get them on the show and find out how accurately you are representing their medical reality. And then we're going to compare it to the actual broad medical reality.
Well, they had a show on TLC, so you don't need to necessarily get them on the show. They have their own show on TLC.
I said I need to talk to their doctors as well. I'm not taking some individuals' anecdotes about how it represents the broad community. And of course, it would have to be the doctors who say, in this case, the reason why is this, and this is or isn't typical of other people's cases, which is very quick. You can very, very quickly look up studies from 2020, 2014, another one from 2020 that found out that actually giving puberty blockers to children who are transgender adults dramatically raises their satisfaction with transition later because they don't so harshly is not quite the right word, significantly develop secondary sex characteristics that cause them dysphoria. It significantly lowers their rates of depression, reduces their gender dysphoria and anxiety, which, by the way, if you reduce gender dysphoria, the amount of surgeries that a person may feel inclined to take actually also goes down, and improves their global functioning and life satisfaction. So it's weird because you're sitting here and going like, but what about Jazz Jennings? Because only everything else about the issue is against me. But what about that one person?
They're a pretty good example of exactly what I'm talking about.
What about all the successful people? What about all the people who went through it and had successful surgeries with no complications? What about them?
Let me ask you a question. If you have 1 inch to work with,
what about them?
If you create your bowels,
what about them? It's not just the bowels; it's other parts of the body too. But what about these? All the successful people. Jesus fucking Christ!
What are the nerves trace back to, Jovan? The nerve ending.
Christ.
It's another one where he's asking a question as a gotcha. We're going to fact check him, and it's going to turn out that he's going to be wrong about that. I didn't even actually hear. I can't make out his mumbly question. Jacob, did you start driving again?
No, that's a couple cars driving by.
Yes, you are lying. The quality of your audio has changed because you are clearly on the road again.
Yes, there's multiple cars driving down my road, dude.
No, it's not going whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It is a constant sound. Why are you fucking lying? Jacob, you're lying about every point you're making. You've lost on every one. And now you're lying. We can hear the difference in the quality of your audio as it is sustained because you're on the road. Are you going to pull over again or are we moving on?
I think you might have heard a couple of cars go by or some wind, dude.
I like how you're changing it now. You're clearly, my God, Jacob, you are just a liar of a person through and through. I'm not stupid.
Trying to get off here quick, aren't you?
How? Why?
We literally. My question.
Wait, Jacob. Do you think that if the call ended now, we'd look bad compared to you? Do you know how many fact checks you have failed so far? I never heard your question because it was competing. Jacob, it was competing with the fucking traffic next to you. I heard bull, nerve endings.
So if you if you have 1 inch to work with for a male to female, and you create a vagina out of the tissue, and you use bowel tissue to form it, where do the nerve endings trace back to in the brain? Or the majority of that organ?
Or intestinal tissue. It can also sometimes be, what is it? It's like, I think they also can use ass tissue, if I'm remembering correctly.
I like that you think that, by the way, that this matters.
Or they do a skin graft.
Jacob, it literally doesn't matter. Even again, you're asking questions that you feel like if you reveal, we don't know because we're not neurosurgeons. By the way, you didn't know before you looked it up and found it specifically for your case because you think it makes your case. It doesn't, because at the end of the day, even if the tissue comes, stop. Even if there are no nerve endings, even if it doesn't functionally work, if trans people say it makes them more comfortable and they prefer their life to the alternative, then it's fucking up to them. And again, by the way, puberty blockers, less than a 1% regret rate. And I went ahead and
Jimmy, are you ready? Because I have the defeater.
Jazz Jennings described puberty blockers as the thing that saved her life. So even the thing where you're going,
Jimmy, take it a step further. Jimmy, hold on, take it a step further. Jazz Jennings, and I quote, "The surgery only brought me joy and happiness."
You might want to look at a couple of timely references, because you're looking at like a specific stage of their life, and you might want to get to the later stages.
In 2023, do you have an updated quote from her?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the problem, is that as these people age, you guys don't have any long-term studies. There's no study.
Do you have an Jacob, shut the fuck up. Jacob, I need you to shut. I'm muting you. I'm taking over right now. I need you to shut the fuck up. Jazz Jennings said, and I quote, "In 2023, the surgery only brought me joy and happiness." If you don't have an updated quote from her of her changing her tune on this, when I asked you to bring the harm, you got none. So I'm going to unmute you. The only thing I want to hear from you is if you have an updated quote from Jazz Jennings. If you don't, we are moving on. Do you have an updated quote, Jacob?
Yeah, I can get you an updated quote.
Go for it.
Where is it?
Take a second, but I'll get you an updated quote.
You're going to be on mute for 5 minutes until you can get it. Me and Jimmy are going to talk the shit because I can't hear your voice.
In her most recent interviews in 2025, she is still speaking very positively about her experience, rights to transition. I'm sitting here going like, what? I give a fuck. And it's like, even if she says there was complications with my surgery because of this, and this, it wouldn't matter. Literally, I bet you could find somebody who is the person who they are the one who their puberty blocking hormones prevented them as an unexpected side effect from getting surgery in some way. And yet you're actually going with somebody who doesn't even make your case. But even if one person makes a case, it's fucking called anecdotal evidence. We aren't investigating the actual science of it. We're investigating their recollection of it. And it's one person against the overwhelming data where people less than 1% are regretting using puberty blockers and point to it, as Jazz Jennings did, as the thing that saved her life. So when you're unmuted, you will be sharing the quote.
He's unmuted now. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear the updated quote
that shows she regrets going on puberty blockers.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to take me a second to find it, but I will tell you this. I was referring to her doctor.
Don't want to hear any of that. You're on mute again. Nope. Sorry. Don't want to hear any of that. The only thing I want to hear is an updated quote from her, because if she is happy in her transition, happy with her surgery, if her mental health is better, if her physical well-being is better, and all of this stuff is better for her, then it doesn't matter if her surgery had complications, which, by the way, was due to splitting, which can happen whether you have enough penile skin or not. So I don't care what her doctor said. I care about harm. And right now, all I want to hear from you, Jacob, it's nothing else. You get no other arguments unless you can provide an updated quote from Jazz Jennings or you concede that you're talking out of your ass. Those are your two options.
didn't give you a quote from Jazz Jennings. I said Jazz Jennings had complications due to exactly what I said.
Great. Well, Jazz Jennings is still conversation. So. Apparently, whatever the complications are, Jazz Jennings is still extremely glad that her process included puberty blockers and says that they saved her life. So at the end of the day,
that's interesting. That's interesting. They have a 16. Can I ask you a question about that? So it saved her life. How come? I just want to ask you a question. So you said claim it saves her life. How come they have a 16 times increase rate in sewer slide and self-harm?
You moron! They don't.
I love this.
You're joking. You guys have denied so many basic facts.
Jacob,
I can't fucking wait to hear you quote the goddamn Sweden study that I know for a fact you're going to misquote, Jacob. So give it to us. Give us the name of the study that shows the 16 times increase. I can't wait to hear what it is. Go ahead.
Well, there's multiple. I can pull up one from most modern countries. Which one do you want?
Jacob,
you want the U.S. rate?
Jacob, give me one. Give me one. Give me one single study. One.
Okay, I'll give you a study. Just give me just a second, but it's very easily Googleable. Very easily Googleable.
I don't hear easily Googleable. You made the claim. When I wanted to quote somebody in this, I quoted the person and the book that they were talking about the thing in. You give me the study. Unbelievable. It's not that
whenever I would do this, when I would do this, you guys would just act like the study didn't exist.
I don't care about the facilitation. You're on mute again. I don't care about the fucking nonsense. Jimmy's not seen me like this. This is where I get fucking heated. Give me the fucking name of the study. I don't care about anything else you have to say. All I want is the name of the study. That's it. That's all I want.
Okay. Can you have a little bit of patience? It's from the Pew Research Center.
Great title.
What's funny is you guys are going to do it and it still won't affect it because he's going to give a broad trans thing. And even if it was correct, it won't be. He will misinterpret again because he's just Googling and looking at titles that he thinks will support it. But even if he was correct, broadly, whether or not trans people have a higher, and it's not 16 times, has a higher suicide rate, that will not affect what is the suicide rate among people with access to puberty blockers, transition care, and community, which get down to basically normal population rates.
Do me a favor, you're going to love this. Go Google right now, Pew Research Center study on trans suicide. Just type that into Google and tell me what comes up.
Sure.
Correlates of suicide.
I do like how MAGA, anytime Pew disagrees with them, they're like, well, Pew is bad. And it's like, guys, you got to pick. Do you like it or not? Let's see.
Did you
Pew
Google
research on trans suicide rate. There is no specific Pew Research Center study on transgender suicide rates. The research cites several other organizations, including the Trevor Project, the Williams Institute, UCLA. It's funny because it's easily Googleable, so much so that you knew what organization puts it out, and yet there isn't a Pew Research study on transgender.
The only thing you're quoting, Jacob, is the study, and you're misquoting it like every single person that I've ever talked to who brings up the suicide rate. You're still Googling it. It's crazy. You would think if the study existed, it would be the first thing that you could find, but you're still looking for it. It's the Sweden study, and you're misquoting it like every single person does.
You were probably meaning to quote an article from the Williams Institute poorly. That's probably where you were going with it. Hey, Jacob, simple yes or no question. Or just say fact or untrue in response to this statement. Access to puberty blockers and transition care dramatically reduces suicide rates for trans people.
In which country?
Across the board.
Okay, because this is very easily Googleable. You know that your audience can fact check you guys, right?
Homie, you said your source was easily Googleable, and you're still fucking here waiting for you to easily Google it. My guy,
hey, Jacob,
you Googled it. You tell us. Tell us what you found. Tell us what you found.
I already did tell
You're
us.
The one sitting there Googling it.
I already told us what we found. Hey, Jacob, you said the thing about, your audience can fact check you, right? I'm fucking counting on it. I dare them.
Okay, so you want a source from Denmark? You want a source from Denmark?
Oh, so you don't. So you, to be clear, you don't have the Pew Research. But to be clear, it's not the Pew Research study, like you said.
Just give me the title of the study. I don't care. Just give me the title of the study, please.
I can't believe you guys are denying like base level reality.
Just give me the title.
Stop it.
Pretty crazy.
Why are you afraid of us seeing the
title of the study?
Give us the title. Why are you afraid
of
reasoning
out of this?
Gender. I'll give you one from the U.S. Gender non-contentness. It was done in 2024. It talks about how females and males specifically have problems with
this isn't about suicide rate.
Self-harm.
Jacob, you said you were going to give us the suicide rate study with the 16 times sites. That is not what you're doing. Then a minute ago, you said this is easy. I have one from Denmark. Stop, Jacob, until I'm finished. You said this is easy. I'll give you one from Denmark. We said, give us the study from Denmark. And then you said, okay, I'm going to give you one from the US on gender non-contentedness. You're literally, do you know that the audience can fact check you? Did you ask us?
I hope they do. There's a study on gender non-contentedness that talks about self-harm.
You didn't read the study. You didn't read the study.
Bro, I read the study. I can tell you the little chart from the study. You want to tell me what the chart says from the study? I read the study.
You just pulled up. You haven't even read the introduction.
I'm trying. I've looked this up. I've looked it up in the U.S. I've sourced it before. I've got a different rate from the U.S., from Sweden, from Denmark, from any source. I always get it's typically different, and it fluctuates from 8 times to 16 times more likely, depending on the source, whether it's a U.S. source or a Sweden source or a Denmark source. You can fact check people. Go on Google and look this up yourself.
Jacob would like you to fact check, and please go do his homework for him because he doesn't have it here for us. I've already pulled up the thing. I've already pulled up the study that he claims he has seen. I almost guarantee you he's only read, if anything, the abstraction, probably not even that. And he's saying the charts because a layperson interpreting charts, it's kind of the Dunning-Kruger step. So I'm pretty much good, Jovan, to move on because we have actual callers who aren't just reciting the scripts.
I want to point out this one thing. I want to point this one thing out. The study he mentioned, development of gender non-contentness during adolescence and adulthood. All this study measures is whether people are more likely to be incontent with their gender as a kid or as an adult. It does not talk about fucking transitioning at all. So, Jacob, you're a fucking moron. Thanks for calling. Continue to be a moron on your own time because ours is too valuable.
No, but keep being a debate opponent for people who actually know what they're talking about because you're making us look really good. Thank you, Jacob. Bye, Jacob. You fucking suck at this, bro. You are fucking real bad at it. All right.
I hate people who are too stupid to realize they're too stupid.